I've begun to hate the phrase, I am just a girl. When we begin a sentence or a conversation with the simple words, I am, what often follows is an immediate declaration of identity, an assertion of defining characteristics that we claim as part of who we are. I'm just a girl may seem like a phrase that's simply superficial. However, it does not sit well within my subconscious. Yet again, I continue to repeat it mindlessly in the presence of my friends and peers, despite internally knowing it is a flawed claim, reducing our identities to but one thing when we are so much more. Marginalizing ourselves with a simple word, just. That is how easy it is to unintentionally define ourselves. One thing that caused this shift in how I view this phrase was after some intense introspection, imagining how this phrase would come across translated into Kiswahili. Mimi ni msichana tu sounds so much more nuanced and somewhat internally misogynistic, but I digress. In essence, language is more than just a means of communication. It is a currency, an exchange of cultural hallmarks, beliefs, and mutual understanding. Our adaptive nature as humans compels us to consistently evolve with our constantly shifting environments. And I'm no stranger to this phenomenon. I've had to repeatedly witness my parents toying in the presence of their American friends in order for them to be understood. I still can't help but cringe whenever I perceive this. When you go to a restaurant in the United States, they won't understand you when you ask for water. You have to speak their language and ask for a water instead. My mom told me periodically whenever I would poke fun at a little quirk. I found myself squirming or feeling second-hand embarrassment following these encounters, doused with a hint of anger. Now, I love her, so I was vexed by the fact that she couldn't just speak in her original voice, her original accent. I knew perfectly well that they would understand her regardless, that there was no need to change any aspect about herself. I knew that the American baristas wouldn't make the slightest effort to change their inflection just for her to understand them. So, why go to such lengths to fit in? But alas, during my trip to Manhattan last year, I found myself having to enunciate my R's and my T's, as well as speak with precision and concision, despite never previously doubting my eloquence, to assimilate with the direct and fast-paced talking style of the New Yorkers. The speed of adaptation is at times incomprehensible. You've got to do what you've got to do to thrive in new environments. Eventually, it became a subliminal trend throughout my trip. And in no time, the change was habitual. You don't even realize you're doing it. And bam, just like that, the hypocrite label is slapped right on. Now, I didn't come here to chat about the double standards, but rather question why we, specifically as Africans, feel the need to do this. I don't mean to generalize, but more often than not, this phenomenon unfolds. Why is it that when African athletes, including our very own world-class runners from Kenya, accidentally shrub in an interview due to the influence of their mother tongue, which is likely one amongst the multiple languages that they speak, their otherwise phenomenal athletic feats are diminished or overshadowed by a trivial mispronunciation, mimifying them for something well beyond their control? Perhaps it is to bring them on par, quote-unquote, with their fellow international athletes, since language is ultimately an equalizing tool, helping to foster a sense of belonging and helping to assimilate. Obviously, it can be boiled down to what I kept on repeating, adaptation. But at what point do we draw the line between that and inauthenticity to the point where it's embarrassing to witness as a younger generation? Historically and culturally, you're seen to have made it once you reach Maju. The States, European countries, other Western nations. So, do these athletes feel the need to prove their adaptability linguistically? It is much deeper rooted than just a strategic and necessary adjustment, but rather a compromise of identity. When I think of New Horizons, I picture changing our traditional viewpoints to more reformed and empowering ones. And I believe that the very first step towards this is appreciation of the little tweaks of language and how it has evolved into a transcultural collaboration. Most people may not realize this, but when foreigners or tourists visit our vibrant homeland, after assimilating with your everyday Kenyan, they end up picking up on and mirroring our exclamatory phrases. Have you ever witnessed a Muzungu saying, we, esho, even wo, lolo? If you haven't, you should definitely get that checked off your bucket list. It's a funny yet beautiful thing to encounter, making one appreciate the beauty of our culture, as well as ponder. The funny thing is, when they return home from our country, they end up repeating these exclamatory phrases, these Kenyan-born phrases, to their friends and family. So why not appreciate our own culture when we return back home, rather than permanently altering our identities, despite returning to the very source of this uniqueness? I want to challenge the audience to begin to romanticize our cultural and tribal tongues, especially as an upcoming generation, to ensure that we do not lose this unique accent we have as Kenyans, and preserve this very important and crucial part of our collective identity, and pass it on to future and upcoming generations after us. It is okay to adapt. In fact, it is inevitable. However, never should we feel the need to compromise. Never should we feel compelled to surrender our individuality. Thank you.